Was wrestling something you grew up watching as a kid?
No, as I talk about it in the first book, and there's two volumes. Of volume one has been out for a while. Volume two just came out recently. Um, but as I talk about in volume one, no, I was introduced to it by a cousin of mine when I was 11 years old, and I was hooked. I was as hooked when I was 11 years old as I was. I'm almost 59, so figure out how many years later, 48 years later, uh, when I watched John Cena turn heel the other night. And I don't watch every match. You can't. There's not enough time in the day to watch every match or even every show. I try to fast forward through some things, uh, but yeah, put me in that zone of pro wrestling done right with angles and promos and stuff like that. And I'm that same little 11-year-old that watched Superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, go at it. With Gordon Soley calling the action. So
Yeah. Florida was a huge territory.
yeah, I was very lucky to grow up in Florida.
Hmm.
So yeah, I became a huge fan, and just tried to figure out a way to not even to get in the business. That wasn't even a thought at some point, just to like have maybe get to know somebody or kind of find an in. Uh, but yeah, as the volume one talks about is I worked very hard, but I got very, very lucky. People saw some things, different couple of people saw some things in me that weren't there. And you got to remember, this is in the 1980s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So totally different business. You
Yeah.
don't walk into a dressing room in World Championship Wrestling or anywhere, quite frankly, even on the indie circuit, unless you are a wrestler or a referee. Uh, you just don't. And I was neither of those. I wasn't even a ring announcer when I started bringing guys to WCW. But I just found a bunch of things that I could do to help out, run guys for promos for Jim Ross, and uh, you know, just whatever I could do to help out, ring the bell. And eventually, not only did I get my opportunity, knock on wood, but I got the respect of these guys that must have looked at me for a couple of months going, who the hell is he and why is he here? Um, I walked around. One of the first things I started doing was I walked around and had people sign in. It was a pay sheet, so you had to print your real name and sign it. It was also the legal letter saying that in a paragraph that you was like tiny print saying that if by signing this we could use your image and your video in perpetuity. And so that's why a lot of the guys when WWE Network first started and 24/7 and all that, and they were like, "Well, you owe us royalties." I was like, "You didn't read that fine print. You just wanted to get paid." They're like, "You're right." I said, "That fine print said they own you. They don't owe you. They owe you what they're paying you today, and they don't owe you anything moving forward." Uh, and But since people wanted to get paid, they took my, yeah, I tried really hard not to be a mark, even though inside I was at the time. And well, I'm always a mark, but uh, so I tried really hard. So I was just, hello, sir. Uh, this is the pay sheet. Can I get you to sign it so I get you paid? And they probably, there's probably a couple of people looked at me like, who the hell are you? But they heard paid and they didn't really care. But eventually they got to respect me. Well, John, I remember a couple of months in, Junkyard Dog and Tommy Rich. We're in Gainesville, Georgia, the Georgia Mountain Center. Uh, and they stopped me, and Junkyard Dog said, "What do you do? What do you do here? Who are you here with?" And I told him, bring guys up from Florida to do, enhancement work. And I'm just helping out while I'm here. And Jody Hamilton is the one who invited me. Once you say Joe Hamilton, I mean the guy had mad respect, so nobody's gonna kick you out on your ass. They might just give you a dirty look. But Junkyard Dog said, "All right, well that makes sense." He goes, "I'm gonna call you the Walking Man. You walk here, you walk there, you walk around, never stop walking." And to this day, if I see like a Tommy Rich, who I haven't seen in like 25 years, or when I used to see Tracy Smothers before he passed, they would call me the Walking Man. Hey, Walking Man, what's going on?
it's like a brotherhood, sisterhood. The friends that you make
It
in this
wasn't back
business.
then, man. They looked at me, not back then though, but back then I didn't belong there. And it's true, I didn't belong there. I don't know why they put up with it. I guess they put up with it because Jody saw something in me, like I said, that wasn't there. Um, and and because of that, that there's no doubt in my mind. There's been a few people in my career, probably half a dozen or so, that I couldn't have gone to the next level without. But there's not a doubt in my mind, without Jody seeing something in me that I don't know that anybody else saw, that would never have happened. That would have been a one and done WC. It was a favor to Bob Roop, who was my first mentor, and if he didn't see something in me that nobody else saw, that would have been a one and done. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And you know what? That still would have been cool, because I still would have been backstage with the guys in WCW, with the Rock and Roll Express and the Four Horsemen and all those guys. And so, you know what? If that's the only, I could have said that was pretty cool. But luckily, a combination of my hard work and some breaks, uh, that I had got, I got to move to the next level. So ever
Yeah,
since then, it's been a dream come true.
they moved you up the ladder. You started, in the office, and then eventually you worked your way up. How did the announcing gig come about?
So Jim Ross was there for a while, and like I said, he was in charge of he was like the executive producer of the Saturday Night Show. So he just he made it was before Eric got the gig, and so he made sure who the ring announcers were there, all that stuff, just like overseeing the whole thing. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so I would run guys for promos, for him, uh, and run errands for him if he needed. So if anybody needs something, I'm Stooge of the Year. We thought about naming the book Stooge of the Year. But so anyway, I had my foot in the door. I was going to do whatever it took, short of something that my values didn't believe in. But so I would tell him, yeah, I'm a ring announcer. I'm a mobile DJ, ring announcer. I ring announce in South Florida. If you ever have an opening, I'd love an opportunity. That's all I ask. So Tony Schiavone came back from WWF, and right at the same time, Jim Ross walked away for the first time from WCW. So, like his second week there, Tony Schiavone said, "Hey, are you the guy that drives people down from Florida?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, we have an opening for a ring announcer." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." He said, "Yeah, there's this guy Dino Puglia that used to ring announce in WWF. He lives in Tampa. Will you bring him up next week?" And I mean, it really could have ended all there because I didn't know what to say. But I was like, "Penzer, you got to say something." So I was like, "Well, I know that you just came back, and I've been talking to Jr. and I'm a ring announcer as well, and if I'd love the opportunity to compete for the job." He said, "Okay, we'll bring up Dino next week, and then the next week after that you could get a tryout." And really, I mean, I've never been so nervous in my life. I wrote down every single word I was going to say throughout the whole show, like even like ladies and gentlemen. And I like to say I won by default. I think that neither of us were great at first, and uh, Dino made a few mistakes. I had the knowledge of being on the headsets, ringing the bell, knowing what they expected from a ring announcer in between matches, and to get the crowd going and all that stuff, and how the cues were done. And I mean, I truly believe uh, that I won by default because I was already coming up anyway, so they didn't have to pay my travel. But that was the start of just taking on as many things as I could, and just inhaling myself with learning everything. And, inhaling is not probably not the word. Embracing myself to learn everything about the pro wrestling business.